What does freedom mean to you? Does it mean the freedom to choose? The freedom to have a family and raise your kids according to your own values? What about living a wild, adventurous life, experimenting with music, relationships, or art? What does freedom really mean? What if freedom meant something that only a few Americans still understood? What if it meant that your choices and your values were set by you, rather than by some politician in a far-off capital? Some people think we're only free to choose to live exactly how they live, by their moral code, or their narrow worldviews. But if liberty means anything, it means that you, and you alone, have the power to exercise your rights to which the laws of nature and nature's God granted you. It's time to put these principles back into action. It's time to restore the American dream, activate in our communities, and take our country back. It's time to wake up, America. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Glad to have you all in here. Look at you guys here nice and early. Andy O, Matt Unruly, Chris Morrill, Burt Crash, Robbie Thurman. Nice to see you bright and early. Thanks for joining us on the Wake Up America show live stream. Let's get it rolling. All right, top of the show, release the Kraken. Elon Musk is, well, I say threatening, but it's not really a threat, is it? I mean, if you've done nothing wrong, you have nothing to fear. Elon Musk is saying that he's going to release the censorship history of conservatives on Twitter. Ooh, it's going to be good. We'll talk about that at the top of the show. And then Kanye West. No wonder he was in such a bad mood on Monday. Apparently, he now owes Kim Kardashian, who is a billionaire, $200,000 a month in child support. So more than double what most of us are earning a year. Kanye has to pay a month to Kim Kardashian. Yikes. Also, in bigger news, I think, IRS says that Kanye West owes $50 million in taxes. They put a lien on his bank accounts. They're coming to get him. Who's they? At 7:35 this morning, we're going to speak to Jeffersonian Edie Vogel, who will join us in studio, and we're going to talk to her a little bit about what her thoughts are about anti-Semitism. She's a good practicing Catholic. We'll talk to her about that, and we'll have a great show with Edie when she joins me in studio. At 8 a.m. this morning, another good Catholic, Judge Andrew Napolitano, will be joining me to talk about his new column, Slouching Towards Fascism. We'll discuss that. Also, I'm curious to hear what he has to say about the federal Senate bill that was passed yesterday regarding the defense of gay marriage. The Defense of Marriage Act was passed through the Senate yesterday. I'm curious to hear what Judge Napolitano's view on that one is, because one, he's a good Catholic. Two, he's a libertarian. Are those things at odds? We'll talk about that with the judge at 8 o'clock. It should be a great interview. And then at 8:35 today, from the Federalist, his very first time on the show, David Harsanyi is going to join us to talk about the left's anti-Semitism double standard. It's Jews and Catholics and me right in the middle with no religion whatsoever. You can text the show today at 573-319-1586. Or actually, my religion is like Thomas Paine. The world is my church, and to do good is my religion. But we'll get to that later. Elon Musk is saying he's going to release the Kraken. Well, that's what I call it. He doesn't call it that. He says that he's going to release the files on free speech suppression that has been going on, and he's going to release it on Twitter. This is exciting stuff for those of you who are like me, have been suppressed on social media for years, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, any social media platform, Instagram, some of the worst offenders. Anything owned by Mark Zuckerberg has been the worst. And I was, of course, suppressed on Twitter when I was running for federal office. When I ran for the United States Senate in Missouri in 2018, the week of the primary, I was suspended from Twitter in the most critical hours of my campaign. Imagine, what personally this is going to mean to me to be able to go through and find out, if Elon releases all of the files, to find out what happened to me in the decision making that was made to suppress my campaign for federal office back in 2018. If you have a question or you want to send us a text, send us one at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Chris Morrill says, I'm sure our gracious host appreciated all the traffic yesterday, but it seemed like the subject matter brought some unsavory characters out of the woodwork. Yeah, my wife and I were discussing that. Yesterday was the first live stream that we did that went viral. We had over 300 people watching the Wake Up America show yesterday. on YouTube. It was absolutely insane. And Stephanie and I were talking about it last night. There were some people in there who were, not your typical Cantina crew types. Like, we tend to be more positive, upbeat, optimistic, bright, happy, sunny type of people. We are morning people after all. And the people who came in, some of them were dark and angry and scary. And, that's just what it is. That's kind of going to be the price of success as we grow. But what I'm hoping happens is that the people who come in who like our attitude, the people who are, I guess like attracts like, the people who like our attitude and who like the kind of content that we're creating here will stick around and hang out with us. And for the people who, don't like it, they can go watch something else. So I'm not going to turn down all those views. It was certainly exciting. And we did add a bunch of new subscribers to the YouTube channel, which I'm super grateful for. If you're one of the noobs and you found us yesterday on the stream and you've now subscribed and you're watching us again, please feel free to introduce yourself to all the people in the chat. We consider ourselves friends on this show, and we'd love to make your acquaintance and to become your friend. So if you want to have your text read on the screen, of course, you can also send a super chat on YouTube. And I believe the lowest amount is $1.99 to send a super chat. But if you do send a super chat, we will read that for sure on air. Mary Kramer's joining us this morning. She says, "Oh, AP, you should have thousands. It will happen. We're getting there. We're getting there." All right, so let's get to the news story. I know that's what you're all here for. Musk announced his plan in a tweet on Monday saying, "The public deserves to know what really happened." And he sets this up in epic terms, and I'm like, yeah. Well, this is how he says it. This is like Conan the Barbarian kind of stuff. He says, "This is a battle for the future of civilization. If free speech is lost, even in America, tyranny is all that lies ahead." Yeah. I don't know. That sounds to me like lines from a movie, something like that. "This is a battle," or like that movie quote guy that does like the trailers. "This is a battle for the future of civilization. If free speech is lost, even in America, tyranny is all that lies ahead." I'm just like, yeah, this is awesome. I need like a rock and roll music preset set on here instead of all these like synth wave and like jazzy songs and things like that, so we can have for things like that. As it is, I thought it was pretty exciting. So his announcement comes as he's been restoring multiple high-profile accounts that have been suspended for violating the platform's policies, and he pushed back against these accounts being suspended in the first place. He calls himself a free speech absolutist, which I absolutely am as well, and he's been adamant that Twitter should prioritize protecting free speech. A lot of his opponents, though, have been arguing that the platform will allow for more hate speech and misinformation to spread online, which I find absolutely fascinating because it's only misinformation when the right is spreading the information. I was really laughing this morning when I saw this Jordan Peterson retweet, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull it up here for you to play it, but I might be able to do so later. But it was basically CNBC and Now This News had shared this video from Donald Trump years ago speaking to the United Nations, and where he says Germany will become... Yeah, he says, oh yeah, I can actually let you hear the clip. So this is Germany's reacting to Trump's comments about their upcoming energy crisis before it ever happened. Listen to this.
"Germany will become totally dependent on Russian energy if it does not immediately change course."
And then it shows these clips of the German ambassadors, and they're looking, they're laughing at him. Oh, they're laughing. And then they pull up this sign that says, CNBC, Trump's claim is not accurate and highly misleading, CNBC says. And the German officials are laughing at him. Oh, Germany imports only a fraction of its total energy from Russia.
Here in the Western Hemisphere, we are committed to maintaining our independence from the encroachment of expansionist foreign powers.
Now, as Germany heads into the winter of their discontent, it seems like Donald Trump's information wasn't quite the misinformation that they thought it was. But that was never censored. That was never pulled down. There was no fact check of that. But now the piper is going to be paid. And I loved it. Did you see this story about a month ago when Joe Biden posted about inflation and the cost of groceries? And it was right after Elon Musk had taken over Twitter, and they fact checked Joe Biden, and the left absolutely lost. They went bonkers.
Hell no, man. What the f***, man? Get your ass on, boy. Get your goddamn ugly ass on.
It was absolutely hilarious. And I think that this is a sign of good things to come. Elon Musk has been kind of teasing the details of Twitter's suppression. We all know that the big story, of course, was the Hunter Biden laptop story that was suppressed online. Twitter banned the New York Post from being able to post about it, banned anybody from being able to post about it. And of course, we know that that story absolutely impacted the outcome of the 2020 election. I mean, this is exciting stuff. And I got to say, we got to give it up for Elon. If you're a big Elon Musk fan, I mean, I know there are a lot of people who are not Elon Musk fans, but quite frankly, I am one. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Send us a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. I'd love to hear from you from text messages. I do read the text messages on air. So if you send me a text message and you don't want me to say your name or who it's from, make sure that you indicate that, because I'd love to hear from you, but I don't want to out you if that's what you're saying. Chris Morrill replies, not saying we should have sided with Germany, just maybe sit on the whole Eastern Front thing and let them sort it out themselves. Probably not a bad idea. So Elon Musk tweeted on Monday that the Twitter files on free speech suppression soon to be published on Twitter itself. He is really going to make Twitter into the everything app. And honestly, as a content creator, I need a platform like that, because Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, all these other platforms, things like that, I'm on their poop list. Okay. So, in terms of like being able to hear what I say on Facebook, it's not happening, right? I'm on 30-day bans, 60-day bans, 90-day bans, which I frequently get. I got a 90-day ban for saying that Kyle Rittenhouse did nothing wrong. And that was 3 days before he was acquitted by a jury. But the 90-day ban wasn't rescinded, even though he was acquitted. So I would love to see the files of what's going on Facebook, because honestly, on Facebook and Instagram, the censorship over there has always been way worse than what's going on Twitter. I don't know. What's your experience been like? Send me a text at 573-319-1586. Here's one of our friends texting in this morning saying that they don't agree with Elon Musk being a hero. They said, "Morning, AP. I still don't trust transhumanist Musk. I'll take him exposing Twitter, but can't trust a guy who got rich off subsidies and wants chips in everyone's head." Okay, that's a good point there. I do think the chip in the head might be going a little bit too far, but it's kind of like with the vaccine, where people are very skeptical of it. But you know what? Some people are like me and they want to be guinea pigs. So you know what? Give me the vaccine, put the chip in my brain, make me a cybernetic organism. I'm fine with being transhumanist. And now I know that I probably lost your trust on that one. But hey, I like that kind of stuff. Give me the chip in my brain. If it, helps me to, get better vision or what have you. I don't know. All right. Well, when we come back, let's talk about Kanye West. He owes child support to a billionaire. And it's a lot. And also the IRS is coming for him. He's not having a good day. We'll talk about all that when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion, delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table, or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Glad to have you here today. Well, to finish off our last topic on Elon Musk, yes, he's threatening to release all the files of censorship on Twitter, which I think is really exciting. But another big story that I think we should cover is that Elon Musk apparently claims that Apple is threatening to remove Twitter from their app store. This is a massive story. The Twitter boss has been attacking the iPhone maker and CEO Tim Cook over advertising and censorship. So Elon is saying that Apple is threatening to remove them from their tech store, and he says the iPhone maker has withdrawn most of its advertising spending from the social media company. Musk asked on Monday if Apple still supports free speech, and he posted a poll asking users whether Apple should publish all censorship actions it has taken that affect its customers, which of course there's no friggin' way Apple is going to release that kind of information. They do not believe in free speech. Um, in another tweet, he asked, who has Apple censored? Now, they didn't respond, of course, to Elon Musk's tweets at them, but Elon has been in big trouble because he's been facing a wave of departures by advertisers since he bought the company last month. Some of them had paused spending on the platform. Many of them begun shifting their digital ad spending to other platforms on the internet, such as like TikTok or Google or Meta or things like that. The Wall Street Journal had been reporting on this story for quite some time, that Mr. Musk says he wasn't sure how much financial runway Twitter still had, and that bankruptcy apparently still wasn't out of the question. Speaking of bankruptcy, Kanye West settled his divorce. Kim Kardashian and Kanye West settled their divorce, and Kim Kardashian West, who is a billionaire, and Kanye West, who was a billionaire until last month, now owes Kim Kardashian $200,000 a month in child support. Good God. Oh my God. So they finalized their divorce on Monday. Yes, they finalized the divorce on Monday, which just so happens to be the same day that Kanye went on Timcast and had that whole scenario where he stormed out because he was getting pushback from his anti-Semitic remarks. But maybe it wasn't just that Tim Pool was actually pushing back on some of his viewpoints and questioning him deeply. Maybe it was that Kanye was in a bad mood because he just had a judgment rendered against him for $200,000 a month, and he's been canceled from his Adidas contract, and he's been canceled from his banks, and the IRS apparently is after him for $50 million in taxes. Kanye said that the IRS put a $75 million hold on 4 of his accounts because he owes $50 million in taxes. So he says this IRS, they say you owe us $50 million, so they put a $75 million hold on his accounts. He's estimated to be worth about $400 million now, which is a massive drop because he was a billionaire, like had over $1 billion just a month ago. Well, when I say he had over $1 billion, we're talking about net worth here, which if you're not familiar, net worth just means that you're worth $1 billion on paper. It doesn't mean that you have the cash, that you have the liquid assets. It just means that all of your values and holdings and net worth are of a certain value. So for all we know, Elon Musk is getting taxed on his net worth of last year, and now his net worth has dropped significantly. I mean, the government's coming after him, and you better believe that they're coming after Kanye West, not necessarily because they want the money. Of course, they want the money. They're coming after him because of his political views. And the IRS has long been weaponized against political opponents of the regime. And when that commentator that I showed you yesterday was talking about Kanye West saying, oh, it's in no way comparable, the IRS coming after you for tax evasion, to comments that Kanye West made about the Holocaust. In terms of scale, no. Is the Holocaust the same on the same scale as going after tax evaders? No. But is it still an example of a tyrannical government going after its citizens and committing crimes against its own people? Yes, it absolutely is. So in that way, it is absolutely comparable. And I know that a lot of people may not agree with libertarians and our views on taxes, but to me, taxation is theft, this is actually a perfect segue for me here. If you're watching the Wake Up America show stream right now, you can see I've got my little AP for Liberty shop store there. It is Christmas time. Look there, I'm drinking out of my Make Taxation Theft Again mug, which we do sell over at the AP for Liberty shop. If I ever become a billionaire, you can bet the government's going to come after me but I'll pay my, the bitter irony is that when you buy a Make Taxation Theft Again mug, I am forced by the federal government and by the state government to collect taxes on it. So when you buy a Make Taxation Theft Again mug at my AP for Liberty shop, yes, there are taxes, and I'm sorry, but you know what? They've got a gun to my head, so I don't want to end up like Kanye West and end up in jail and get Jeffrey Epstein. We do have 2 versions of this mug. One that just says "Make Taxation Theft Again," and then if you're an actual like Austin Peterson fan, meaning you like me personally, you can get one with my own little logo on there at the very bottom. So check that out at AP for Liberty shop. And looks like we've got a guest in the house. we've got Edie Vogel, who's going to be joining us here in just a few minutes. She just walked into the studio. We're going to ask her about what she thinks about what Kanye West has been saying lately. We'll ask her about the presidential campaign that he's embarked on. We'll talk about the history of Catholicism, anti-Semitism, and we're going to get her viewpoints on that one, which I think will be really interesting. And then we've got another good Catholic coming on the show. Judge Andrew Napolitano is going to join us this morning at 8 a.m., and we'll ask him about that. And I'm super curious to hear what the judge thinks about the Republican senators voting for that Defense of Marriage Act yesterday, because on the one hand, he's a good practicing Catholic. On the other hand, he's a libertarian. So does Catholicism and libertarianism sort of have a conflict there? I think that that's an interesting question, and it's definitely something that we're going to discuss. If you have a question for the judge or for Edie or for any of our guests today or for me, send us a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Our new friend, Mr. Smith Original, is over on the live stream today, and he says if you're a small guy, they come right for you after any taxes. If you're big enough, you pay no taxes. Good point. Good point. Yeah. It's like, did you see the announcement that the IRS was going to be coming after your Venmo accounts? If you got paid over $600 on Venmo or PayPal, then the IRS is going to be like looking at all those transactions. So it's kind of like this when the IRS sees what FTX is doing, right? When FTX, billions of dollars are missing. Oh, yet the guy can still walk free and go to crypto conferences and go on national TV. Oh, we don't see anything going on over here. But then all of a sudden, when you have $600 that you got paid for on PayPal, it's like, the telescopes are out and they're down in your minutia. And if you ever expressed a conservative opinion online, well, guess what? Or if you're Kanye West and you said something that went against the regime. And again, I'm not defending what Kanye West is, his actual remarks. I'm just saying that he is a political target, and the regime will use him as a target. And if you think that they won't come after you in the same way, I have got some stock in the Tuscumbia Bridge Company, which is a bridge that existed a long time ago here in central Missouri that exists no longer. And I will happily sell you that stock in that company, but for that bridge that does no longer exist. Okay. Because they will. They came for the somebodies, and then they came for the somebodies, and then they'll come for you. I am forgetting my terminology there. First they came for the whatever. It's the George Orwell quote. Can somebody please hook me up with that on the live stream? Mr. Smith Original, since you're over there and super smart this morning, we got 38 people watching this morning over on YouTube. Glad to have you here. If it's your first time watching the show, do me a favor. Click like on the stream and then subscribe. Hit that bell notification icon so that we can see you again, right? We want to be able to make sure that we've got big friend group supporting the live stream, because the Wake Up America show is supported by listeners and viewers just like you. Coming up next, Edie Vogel. We'll talk to her about what she thinks about the IRS coming after Kanye West, talking about Donald Trump and that meeting that he had. It's going to be a lot of fun. You don't want to miss it on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Austin's wife. I want to thank you all for watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us. I believe in liberty, and I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you? I want to ask you today to join Peterson's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Peterson's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and make your pledge today.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
Hello, I'm George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself or me mom, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it and you help me pups build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, it's 7:34. It's time to rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Thanks for sticking around through those commercial breaks. We appreciate it. Not only does the commercial obviously help us to continue the program, but it also gives me a little bit of time so that I can get my guests in studio, on camera, and ready to roll. Joining me now, live in studio, looking all beautiful, is my good friend Edie Vogel.
Well, that's a mouthful to tell you that you have to go to a commercial to get your guest parked in her chair and make sure she's wired for sound.
Right.
And,
there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that goes on here.
And talk about, you got to put my behind in the chair. And you
got to get that headset on.
That's a project.
Got to get you lit up and all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
So let's give Edie Vogel a round of applause. Welcome to the program today.
Thank you.
Now,
welcome. See you guys.
Yeah. So
hear you guys. Whatever.
So
yes.
I'll tell you very briefly. Yesterday, we had our very first show that went viral. So yesterday morning, this program was blowing up the internet. So we had over 300 people watching the show yesterday morning. So it was, very timely topic, the Kanye West stuff.
And is that something different that is occurring for you to you and what you're doing?
Yeah. So
okay.
So usually we get, a good size audience. So like right now we've got about, amongst all the platforms, maybe 50 people watching.
Okay.
But yesterday was 300, and it was because of the topic and because of the timing of everything like that. So, but every time whenever that happens, we add new followers. And this morning we've got new people who've never watched us before. So they probably don't know you yet. So
they'll probably turn it off just as soon as I get started.
Well, so the way I would describe Edie is kind of like she's a Jeffersonian. She's a former city councilwoman here. She's active in local politics. She's a Republican. She I would say a conservative who leans libertarian. Would that be safe to say?
You can, yes.
A conservative who leans libertarian.
And recently, it's just more frustration with the
with the
with
the party.
Yeah, it's
which I can understand.
It's messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just so you know where she's kind of coming from on this one. So to me, it's kind of like this is a conversation between like Ted Cruz and Rand Paul, right here. If you as close as you could approximate it in terms of the political philosophies, would you say you're a kind of a Ted Cruz fan? Maybe.
Yeah, I could. Yes, because they're so smart.
Yeah. So
and they have the whole thing to me, Austin, is the fact that we are the only country still in the world that has a constitution, and that we're trying to follow it, and we're being attacked by all ends of the left and the progressives to get rid of the Constitution.
Yeah,
and I'm not the youngest kid on the block, but my heart thinks young, and my mind, when it's working, thinks young, and I just feel like what can we do to try to get everybody to realize that the Constitution is our torch of freedom?
It's a great question.
And the people just kind of let everybody just run ripshot over them, with it. Anyway, you're getting me started. And
yeah, we'll get there. One of our friends on the live stream, Quest Fanning, sent us a super chat, which is basically a super comment that pops up to the top of the screen.
Okay.
He's got a good question. I think you should take a stab at it. He says, why are the left framing allowing free speech as actively advocating hate? How do we respond to that?
So he's trying to say that he thinks free speech is...
why do we allow the left to frame allowing free speech as actively advocating hate?
I don't know.
Isn't that a great question?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is, that's a...
But I mean, have you noticed that too?
Yes.
I mean, it's like
they're using the fact that we do have free speech, but they're reversing it and put it into everything hateful.
Well, but here's the thing, and the reality is that free speech means the ability to say
what's on your mind.
Say what's on your mind, even if it is hateful.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the left doesn't understand that, like, it is that in order for us to know who the bad guys are, you have to allow them to say what they believe. Because what I think happens is that when you suppress speech, even hate speech, they get radicalized even further because they go and they find communities of people who agree with them.
Yeah.
And then the National Socialists and the communists and all those the radicals, they bring them in and they're like, hey, yeah, we're getting suppressed too, and all that kind of stuff. And then, oh, by the way, let me introduce you to the tenets of National Socialism while we're at it here.
Well, recently, when we just had the midterm election, and what I have never, now I'm going to be off the subject, but putting the big bulletin board up about atheists vote too. Where'd that come from all of a sudden?
I noticed that. Well, my wife, Stephanie, pointed that out to me. It was the American Atheist Association or something like that. This like gray old... It's so funny because, like, I'm not religious and I don't believe in higher power, but I totally don't identify with the atheist community because they're all communists.
And I mean, that board was down on 50, Highway 50, down, it runs through Jeff City.
She's like, I'm an atheist and I vote. She's like, lips are all pursed like a persimmon, like, I'm an atheist and I vote.
Yeah. And then the next thing I noticed, and I have to see if it's still there, someone stuck a Jesus loves me flag next.
Are you serious?
No,
no way.
You can't stop in the middle of the road and try to take a picture of that. But I caught that the other day, and I thought, yeah, some kind of a flag that talks about Jesus.
Edie, that's friggin' hilarious. Okay,
it might not be there, but I know I saw it, and I thought somebody.
So here in our capital, we live in the capital of Missouri, Jefferson City. If you're from around the country, and so there's this billboard from the American Atheist Foundation or whatever. It says, like, I'm an atheist and I vote. And I'm like, well, I promise you that the lawmakers around here don't give a rip.
Just, and anyway, I thought, now I'm off the subject of the hate thing. So
yeah, well, that's Robbie Thurman, he also sent a super chat in, which is great because when they send super chats, it's like a donation that they make.
Okay.
So Robbie sent us $5 and said, we can't respond. Logic doesn't work on crazy. It reminds me of that Thomas Paine quote where he says, trying to administer. So he says, using logic on those who have renounced it is like administering medicine to the dead, essentially.
Well,
right?
That's
That's a
what
good one, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Thomas Paine was a good guy.
Yeah,
another atheist.
Yeah, but
he's an atheist and he votes.
See, but those folks that they've got something to them when they when they talk about issues that we all kind of think, how can you talk about that if you don't believe?
Yeah. Well, Mr. Smith Original, our new friend over in the stream, says that communism begins with atheism, says Karl Marx. It's true. The thing is, though, with communists is that they're not really atheists because their God is the government. They believe in the church of the omnipotent state, and they worship the government and the state. And they believe, I would rather have people believe that it's God's responsibility to solve our problems than the government's. Because whatever people think of God, as flawed as I may believe it is, one thing that is for certain is that human beings are flawed.
Right.
And if we give them ultimate power, like godlike power, to try and solve our problems, they will make human mistakes.
We're experiencing that now.
Yeah. So I would rather have a limited government where people trust in God and rather than a massive government where we trust in, Joseph Stalin and people like that to make these kinds of decisions. Chris Morrill says Ayn Rand would beg to differ. Well, yeah, I'm more of an Ayn Rand on that subject, which, Ayn Rand was was an atheist herself. But and I believe I'm more of her view of things on government and pro-capitalist. But the thing is that Chris Morrill, you and I, and people like Ayn Rand, we just have to realize that we're in the minority, and that that the type of people that we're going to have to make alliances with are going to have to be people that we agree with ultimately on government, because it's more, people's views on government are more important than their views on religion, in my mind, because government affects us all. But what Thomas Jefferson said is that it makes no difference whether my neighbor believes in one God or 100 gods. It neither picks my pocket nor breaks my leg, right? Whatever myths or mysticisms or religions that my neighbor has, it doesn't affect me, as so long as they don't bring it into the government and say that everyone must be forced to worship as I would, right? So as long as we have a constitutional government that protects our religious liberty, then people like myself can get along living in a nation like this. But if you live in Qatar, or you live in Saudi Arabia,
won't work.
Then that's a completely different situation. There is no separation of church and state in those scenarios.
It makes,
You can text the show today at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. So you were nodding your head earlier when you were watching me talking about Kanye West and him being a political target. What do you think?
Well, I don't follow. I've never followed him, so he's only become on my radar screen because of his and because I think he still supports Trump.
He does.
And when Owens, who I like a lot, Candy, is it Candy Owens?
Candace. Yeah, Candy. Candy girl.
When they went to Paris and wore the T-shirts that
said "White Lives Matter."
Yeah, I think
that was spicy.
But so
I like that just because it drove the left insane.
Absolutely, especially in France. Okay, but I had no idea till you we're talking about it about his tax situation.
Yes,
so
he's a target.
But I think he's also a target because of his, whether it was a planned event or an unplanned event about Mar-a-Lago and the dinner meeting with Trump and the white racist or supremacist guy, 20-some years old, young kid, doesn't even probably know what the word means. And, I take that back. He probably does. But I'm just saying.
He's an unfortunate character. He's a tragic character.
Here it again. It's the media. The media is putting all this spin on these events that, we don't know. Nobody knows what the invitation or the circumstances of
that dinner.
Yeah.
Well, and see, that was the story. That's the reason it was such a big story, because Kanye went on this show, Tim Pool, which I think you heard. I went on a couple times. I know you just keep
explaining, but I just feel like that Kanye West, he's You're right. They're targeting him now.
him.
And it's to go get to Trump.
Yes.
Yeah.
And well, yes, because of his association with Trump.
Yes.
But he has made some remarks about the Jews, which would, set anybody's teeth on edge.
Right.
He calls them business people, right? And puts it in quotes, right? Because he doesn't want to call them the Jews, although he has in the past. But he blames them for his problems. And I think it probably has to do with the fact that he's bipolar. Like, I blame his mental illness on a lot of the things that he's saying.
Is that something that has been out in the...
Yeah,
that he has some...
It's been for a while.
Okay.
And here's the thing. He went on this show and he talked about how they've been trying to drug him up, put him on lithium, and try and dummy him up and shut him up and stuff. And I fully believe that a lot of people are trying to zombify him by putting him on these powerful medications. And I don't know what he needs in terms, I'm not a doctor and I can't say, but it's kind of like you have all these conflicting situations where he does need help. But you know what happens, Edie, to people like Donald Trump and to Kanye West? When you get that powerful, you get surrounded by yes men.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that was Donald Trump's downfall in his first presidential term was that he surrounded himself by sycophants and people who'd never told him no. And, he made a lot of mistakes. What do you think? As a Trump supporter, would you agree?
Yes. But we can't still take it away from him how the economy was running and we had cheap gas. And,
it's true.
So the food was cheap. Cheap, but it's not. It's mind-boggling.
Yep. You can text the show today at 573-319-1586. One of our friends from the 573 says, are you still in Scott's office? Yes, we're still at the Missouri Times doing the show. And so far, it's been going great. Yeah. It's a great location. And I've got a bunch of studio upgrades that are coming in this week. So we're going to actually be able to have more than one guest in studio.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking a round table.
We've got a round table. We'll be able to have more guests. I'll have more microphones. I'll have more audio options. All kinds of new upgrades
That's
are
cool.
coming. So
cool.
It's really exciting. We're going to go to a commercial break. But when we come back, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about being a Catholic, what that's like in the history of anti-Semitism and stuff like that, and sort of the attitude towards Jews, because we're having these conversations now in public, and I think we've been needing to have them for a long time. The Jews control Hollywood, right? The accusations and stuff. We'll talk about that with Edie when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Were you exposed to hazardous materials while serving in the military and have an illness or condition as a result?
If so, you may be eligible for VA benefits and services. Whether you need health care or want to file a disability compensation claim related to military exposures, VA is here to help. Visit va.gov/military-exposures to learn more and apply today.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
Thank you.
Good morning. It's 7:50. It's time to rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Joining me in studio is my good friend, native Jeffersonian and a freedom fighter herself, Edie Vogel. Hi, Edie.
Yeah, good morning again.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us today.
Last day of November.
Last day of November. We've got lots more exciting content to go for you. Judge Andrew Napolitano is going to be joining us this morning at 8 a.m. We're going to talk to him about his latest column, Slouching Towards Fascism. We'll discuss that, and we're going to talk to him a little bit about the whole anti-Semitism kerfuffle that we're having this week. And then at 8:30 today, we'll speak to David Harsanyi about the left's double standard when it comes to anti-Semitism, because I'm pretty sure we've heard some remarks out of one Ilhan Omar that might cause one to shuffle. What are you rolling your eyes there, aren't you, Edie?
Well, at least those radicals don't have a platform when Congress convenes in January. They'll just be kind of taking a seat.
Yes. Kenneth Slayer over on the live stream says, the Jews is not a singular subject about which you can have an opinion. Where there are 3 Jews, you have 9 opinions to start with. Good point there. But I mean, in regards to like what, Kanye West is saying, where he was talking about, the Jews control the banks and the Jews control Hollywood. Somebody sent me a really good quote yesterday from Thomas Sowell, where he was actually addressing that. And he says that it shouldn't be surprising that you will find an inordinate amount of Jews in industries that they pioneered. Which, if you think about it, makes a lot of sense, because the Jews absolutely pioneered Hollywood. So why would you not? Why would it be surprising?
Different now.
Well,
I think.
Go ahead. Let's hear it, Edie.
Well, I think that I think the oh jeez, true about the Jewish people having a lot of power, but I think they've kind of gone underground. They're not front and center. We're in an area that I'm not up to speed with all of the inner workings of business with the people of Jewish faith.
Okay, so I've got a clip here I want to play. I played this yesterday.
So you're going to maybe educate me today.
So this is Jon Stewart, and he's talking to Stephen Colbert about anti-Semitism and the comments that were made specifically by Dave Chappelle, where they were talking about the comments that Dave Chappelle made on Saturday Night Live a few weeks ago about, what you can or can't, because Chappelle was kind of defending Kanye West to a certain extent, right? And that his comments that there are a lot of Jews in Hollywood, right? And I'll just let Jon Stewart say this, and take a listen to this. Let's listen to this clip. Take a listen.
Look at it from a black perspective. It's a culture that feels that its wealth has been extracted by different groups, whites, Jews, things. Whether it's true or not isn't the issue. That's the feeling in that community. And if you don't understand that that's where it's coming from, then you can't deal with it. And you can't sit down with them and explain that being in an industry isn't the same as having a nefarious and controlling interest in that industry and intention, right? And that's been the anti-Semitic trope. But you need to be able to meet people from what their community is feeling as well.
So in terms of dealing with it, as the way you might be able to deal with it is to say, okay, let me try to understand why you feel that way. Let me try to deconstruct.
That's right.
With facts, why that is not the case.
That's right. But if you can't do that, if you're not allowed to say it, Dave said something in the SNL monologue that I thought was instructive as well, which he says it shouldn't be this hard to talk about things. And that is what we're talking about. I can't pretend that there aren't a ton of people in this country and this world who believe that the Jews have an unreasonable amount of control over the systems, and they wield it as puppet masters. I'm called anti-Semitic because I'm against Israel's treatment of Palestinians. I'm called other things from other people based on other opinions that I have. But those shut down debate. They're used as a cudgel. And whether it be comedy or discussion or anything else, if we don't have the wherewithal to meet each other with what's reality, then how do we move forward? I don't enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. When people I admire, whose music I like or things like that come out and say, how many of you are in show business? We have our own tropes, like a white person's success is because of privilege. A minority's success is empowerment. A Jew's success, that's a conspiracy. You feel that. I feel that. But I have to be able to express that to people. If I can't say that's bull and explain why, then where do we go? And if we all just shut it down, then we retreat to our little corners of misinformation and it metastasizes. And the whole point of all this is to not let it metastasize and to get it out in the air and talk about it. Like, I know you don't like Jews. I see it in your eyes.
Jeez.
So that was Jon Stewart talking to Stephen Colbert about, like, you know, how it's wrong to shut down the debate and the discussion, and that when you try and cancel people or censor people, even with the views that Kanye West holds or that Nick Fuentes character, right, the white supremacist kid, right, then what you do is you radicalize it and you make it worse, and it's kind of like a wound that instead of like cleaning it out, opening up the wound, cleaning out the pus and having an open discussion about it, you're not going to solve the problem, you're only going to make things worse. What are your thoughts, Edie?
Oh my.
It's a big subject. It's not an easy one.
It's way above.
I know I'm throwing big stuff at you today.
I don't have the intellectual ability to sit here. I agree with Stewart's feeling of you gotta have discussion. But as I sit here and I'm thinking, well, who's going to be the monitor and lead the discussions? You know, and I think you got to remember those guys, Colbert, whatever his name is. See, I don't pay any attention to any of that Saturday Night Live stuff.
I know.
So
here's what somebody said to me yesterday.
I'm not going to help you much this morning.
That's okay. That's
dissertation of all of this.
Thomas Sowell noted that industries.
Thomas Sowell is a well-respected,
conservative, libertarian, I would say. Thomas Sowell noted that industries where Jews are observed to have the most influence are ones they largely pioneered. I think that if folks in power want to use that power to advance members of their own community, it's a good thing. And here's conversely, while leftists actively stymieing their own children's progress in the interests of equity is evil, meaning that people are arguing that it's wrong for the Jews to help other Jews and for them to help each other, and it's a conspiracy of evil. But here's the thing. The left is all about destroying the legacy that they leave to their own children. Right? They want to it's like the inheritance tax, for example. Like, they don't think that they should be able to pass on wealth to their kids, but the Jews, or the Jewish people, you say the Jews, it's got that connotation. But I mean, do you see that? I mean, I think that's a really good point there, right? The left is actively stymieing their own children's progress is wrong, but the Jewish people want to help their children progress. And, certainly if you're a right-wing conservative, like, a lot of people, like my father is, like, he wants to leave generational wealth. He wants to help his family and his people.
No, there shouldn't be anything. Well, it pops into my head, and I historically like the Black Entertainment Television Network. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that run by
Jewish people?
No.
What are you talking about?
Well, there's names of Black men who are entrepreneurs here in our country, and Jones, is it?
I'm not sure.
Well, anyway, when you watch the BET network,
Black Entertainment Television.
Yes, isn't that what they've gelled together to support?
I wouldn't be surprised to find out that BET was run by Jewish people, but
well.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I don't know, but I'm just saying.
Know the answer to that.
Trying to make a comparison to if you have Hollywood is all nothing but the Jewish influence or the Jewish own. Tough subject this morning.
I know.
I'm going to walk out here and say, this was not good today.
Say today?
Yeah.
Okay, you're doing fine, Edie.
Let's get to the Catholicism part.
Exactly. It's coming up next. We'll talk to Judge Napolitano about this and more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Dee-Dee's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Dee Dee made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Dee Dee really likes it. Dee Dee said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake. Yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes. You like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bullshit. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bullshit blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender. I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
any real-world experience.
It's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. I love seeing all the new names and faces and people that have started following the show lately. It's great to see you here. You must have liked it and subscribed to the show already. But if you haven't, do me a favor. Make sure that you subscribe and hit that bell notification icon so that you can get alerts whenever we go live. It's because you get awesome treats like great guests like the one who's joining me right now. He's the host of the Judging Freedom podcast, and you can download his podcast on any of your mobile devices and read his weekly column at judgenap.com. He's joining me right now. Good morning, Signor Paolo Napolitano. Good morning.
Good morning, Austin, my dear friend. How are you? Yeah, I have to tell your listeners what I said to you before we went on air. You haven't changed at all in the 12 or 13 or 14 years we've known each other. And it's an absolute joy for me to work with you on Wednesday mornings. Joy is the best way to describe it.
Well, thank you, Judge. Yeah, it's my love for liberty that keeps me young and happy and thriving. Now, Judge, during the break, I brought up to you this very delicate, sensitive topic about anti-Semitic remarks that have been made by Kanye West. He got some pushback on an interview that he did on Monday on Timcast. Everybody's talking about it, and you're somebody who's worked in the media for a long time, Judge, and I've worked in it for maybe a quarter as long as you have. But there are a lot of Jews that work in the television and film and production industry. It's kind of an open secret. But when Kanye West sort of points it out, and he obviously did so very inartfully, there's a huge backlash to it. There's an urge to suppress him. There's an urge to censor him. But is it so wrong to note that there's people of any like demographic within one particular industry? There's a lot of Catholics in the Vatican.
Well, there used to be before Pope Francis. Oh, remember those questions that everybody always knows the answer to? Does the bear blank in the woods? Is the Pope Catholic? Well, those things are not answerable the way we thought they were. Okay, back to what you're talking about. I'm of the view that hate speech should not be suppressed because A, you want to know who the hater is, and B, the remedy for hate speech is more speech. It's not silent. And it's not silence. It's not enforced silence. And though I disagree with Kanye West and his new buddy, Nick Fuentes, disagree profoundly with them on history and morality, I would not be one to want to use the power of the government to silence them. I don't know why he left Tim Pool. Most people would kill to get on Tim Pool's show. It has such an enormous audience, and he's such a smart and intriguing guy, just like you are, Austin. But I'm going to guess that Tim pressed him aggressively on the historical or moral basis for his attitude about the Jewish people. And Kanye, or Ye, as he prefers to be called now, did not or could not respond in an intellectually acceptable way. If the Jewish people dominate in the media and in the banks, it's because they got there by hard work. It's because they're smart and they got there by hard work. That's not a criticism of them, and it shouldn't be a criticism of them, and it's none of the government's business. America is still barely, but still a meritocracy. You work hard, you get ahead. You look at people as human beings, not as white or black or Jew or Gentile or Catholic or Protestant. When you start doing that, then you get into the Kanye West, Nick Fuentes side of the world, which is prejudging people and which is utterly despicable.
If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson, and you're listening to Judge Andrew Napolitano. He's the host of the Judging Freedom podcast. Judge, this is just kind of like a personal thing, but I'll tell you this, having been in the liberty movement for about 10 or 15 years, about 10 years ago or so, I was in New York City having dinner with some friends, and a young man and his wife joined us. And I wrote a column about it several months after it happened. But when I sat down to dinner with this young man, he was all into everything that I was saying. He loved Ron Paul, and he agreed with us for ending the Federal Reserve. But what was disturbing was that what he said to me at that dinner, the reason why he wanted to end the Federal Reserve, like you and I want to end the Fed. We want to end the Fed because of its control over our monetary system, because it's anti-libertarian, because of economic views. His reason for wanting to end the Federal Reserve was because he thought it was controlled by Jews, right? His interest in libertarianism was because he thought that it was an anti-Jewish philosophy. And that was deeply disturbing to me at the time, because in years after, when I would frequently talk about how I was against a neoconservative foreign policy or I was for ending the Federal Reserve, people would call me anti-Semitic because they would say, well, so neocon is a dog whistle for Jewish, or ending the Federal Reserve is a dog whistle for, Jewish banking conspiracy. How do you respond to things like that?
Well, a person like that obviously is riddled with biases and ahistorical prejudices. I mean, even if everything he said is true, even if the Jewish people do control the banks and do control the Federal Reserve, it's not true, but even if it were true, so what? I mean, we have to look at human beings. Every human has the right to live, and every human has the right to think as he wishes and say what he thinks and publish what he says. And we shouldn't gainsay that or laud it because of the ethnic background. These are immutable characteristics of birth, which should not be used when we are evaluating and judging whether or not we agree with the person. I don't know where this person that you had dinner with got these ideas from. They don't make any sense, and they show a bizarre willingness to make judgments about personal liberty by the ethnic makeup of the people who agree or disagree, and that's just wrong. We don't judge people by their immutable characteristics of birth, gender, race, sexual orientation, religion. These are, in most instances, immutable, and in all instances, personal characteristics that shouldn't enter into play. But boy, do they ever. Do they ever? I never really heard this argument that this kid made to you, and I don't even want to know who it is. It might be somebody we both know or somebody you've happily forgotten about. But if that's his motivation, it's profoundly immoral.
Now, Judge, speaking of National Socialism, your piece that's coming out on Judge Knapp this week is Slouching Towards Fascism. And, I think this is a good segue for us because, as we've mentioned, this Fuentes character, and as we've seen the rise of a new form of populism on the right, the ideas and the tenets of National Socialism are increasingly becoming in vogue in this country. And at first,
Yes.
Judge, many people who were young people who were starting to embrace these tenets of National Socialism were doing so ironically because the left was calling everyone and everything to the right of Joseph Stalin a Nazi, right? And so it began as somewhat of an ironic movement. Some people called this movement the alt-right, which sprang up after the death of the Tea Party. But now there is a genuine movement of people who, if they were to look at the National Socialist German Workers' Party platform of 1929, would find in it everything that they would love to see happen here in the United States and are actively working towards. Judge, are we truly slouching towards fascism?
We are. So I will define fascism as the economists do, and then I'll add the horrific political twists. I mean, fascism is a system of government whereby the means of production and the delivery of services and goods are privately owned but government controlled. Sound familiar? I mean, that's really what we have here. My article points out some of the more horrific aspects of that, which are below the surface, like buy Amazon's Ring, capital RING, for your front door, which allows you to see who's there before you open the door, and which records audio and video of whoever's there. Buy it in New York City. And guess who has access to that audio and video in real time? The New York City Police Department. Well, now, why would Amazon enter into that kind of a partnership with the New York City Police Department? What is the NYPD giving Amazon in return? We don't know. And under the Fourth Amendment, it is none of law enforcement's business who comes and goes at your front door. And there are many other examples of this. The credit card companies making available to BATF your purchases at a gun store. Visa evaluating your purchases in according to the carbon emissions of the product that you purchase. The feds wanting to know as much about gun stores as they do about bookshops. All of this shows an avaricious, insatiable appetite on the part of the government to snoop on people, to take away their privacy, to take away their liberty to the point where the government knows more about us than we do about the government. That brings us into the sort of even creepier side of this, the Fuentes Ye side of fascism, which includes racial preferences and the glorification of war. All fascist governments glorify the state, and the state glorifies its dominant racial majority, and that glorifies war. If the 20th century didn't teach us anything, it taught us that. How these people can deny that, how they can deny the Holocaust, how they can deny the horrors of Nazism, how they can deny the monstrosities of fascism is beyond me.
If you're just tuning in, wow, this is a great conversation. If you're just tuning in, we're speaking to Judge Andrew Napolitano, the host of the Judging Freedom podcast. Al Johnson over the live stream says, wow, I learned so much here over coffee. Absolutely. You do not get these kinds of discussions anywhere else, especially in the mainstream media. Exclusively Judge Andrew Napolitano and Austin Peterson conversations every Wednesday morning here on my show. Make sure that you like and subscribe so that you can come back. Judge, I'd like to go even a little bit deeper here because, this is a deeply serious subject and one that deserves, a sort of a big brain philosophical perspective of here. But when we're talking about fascism, people don't seem to understand the parallels of fascism and communism because, as many philosophies have, ideological cousins, they may be somewhat removed, but they share much in common. And it's been something in vogue in recent years for people like Dinesh D'Souza or Candace Owens or other people who are, part of the major conservative movement to compare Nazis to leftists. And when they define leftists, what they define essentially is people who believe in big government. But when one looks at the actual ideological proponents of full-blown communism and full-blown National Socialism, they really have much more in common than they have differentiated. I mean, I like to say that the difference between communism and National Socialism is really just those racial aspects. I mean, the difference between a communist and a Nazi is that communists allow women to fight in their army.
Well, nicely put. I mean, the Nazis demonized the Jews. The communists demonized whoever Stalin was demonizing at the time, Ukrainians and people of other ethnicities that were part of the Soviet bloc. Again, this gets back to what we were talking about earlier, making decisions on the basis of immutable characteristics of birth. Whether it's a decision you make when you're evaluating a person at a cocktail party, or whether it's a decision you make when you exercise the levers of governmental power, making it on the wrong basis is horrific and has absolutely disastrous consequences. But every fascist dictatorship has migrated toward a form of racism and the glorification of militarism, as well as the control of the economy. I'll tell you when the communism began to unravel. When Richard Nixon made sure we were selling stereos and washing machines and blue jeans to young people in Moscow, and they began to see what the free market can deliver to them, because where economic freedom flows, civil liberties soon must flow. That's a given. That is a historical truism. I don't know that Nixon was able to predict this. I think he probably wanted it, but that was the beginning of the end of communism. Ronald Reagan, of course, starved them out of existence, and Gorbachev came by at the right time. And who knows what's there now in terms of Putin. But the unraveling of communism began with economic freedom.
Now, Judge, one thing that Milton Friedman was famous for saying in his own words, that a free economy gives people what they want instead of what a particular group thinks they ought to want. Underlying most arguments against the free market is a lack of belief in freedom itself. Judge, as the degradation of the liberty movement has occurred over the past decade, as the Tea Party's zenith has started to descend, and as we've seen, less interest in politicians like Ron Paul, Rand Paul, and Thomas Massie and others, and more interest in right-wing populists and more a desire for a centralized power, people have started to lose their faith in freedom. It pains me to no end to see that young people are increasingly embracing these authoritarian ideologies, and that the allies and friends of freedom, people like ourselves, our numbers and our ranks are thinning. Do you think that there's still time to turn it around?
Yes, I think there's time to turn it around. It will probably take a cataclysm, Austin. Jefferson once said, when the people recognize that the public treasury has become a public trough, they will send to Washington, D.C., the people, the representatives will promise to bring home the biggest piece of the pie. I mean, democracy just has become the redistribution of wealth. It has not become the protection of civil liberties. I think, and I don't know if this will happen in my lifetime, it may happen in yours, the federal government will collapse of its own weight. It won't be able to pay its bills. It won't be able to pay people's salaries. Its promises and its promissory notes will be worthless. And just like the Soviet Union, it will collapse, and the United States will break apart into separate republics. If you happen to be in the Northeast where I am, it'll be the People's Republic. Where you are in Missouri, where our friends are in Texas and Florida, it will be smaller republics where personal liberty is higher on the hierarchy of the things that the government will protect. But the rise of the populist right is because they want a piece of the pie, just like the lefty politicians have been giving their people a piece of the pie. I have to confess to you, I do a lot of reading, and I happen to be reading Hans Hermann Hoppe's Democracy, the God That Failed. This is the third time I'm reading it. And it just points out that democracy does not guarantee freedom. It guarantees the distribution of wealth to the crowd that demands it the most.
Now, Judge, if our republic does fall, and if we do break into separate, independent, sovereign nations, and the state of Missouri becomes the nation of Missouri, will you run for president of the nation of Missouri?
If you can take care of the residency requirement, the answer is yes.
Okay, there it is. All right, Senor Judge Andrew Napolitano, is there anything else that you think people should know before I let you go, Judge?
Today at 2:30 Eastern, Scott Ritter, who along with on Judging Freedom, who along with Colonel Douglas McGregor are two titans in their understanding and their ability to explain the military mess that America has caused in Ukraine. I'm not a big military guy, but we are giving to the Ukrainians from our substance as well as from our surplus. And what does that do? Enriches the military industrial complex. So Raytheon is saying, wait a minute, we just built these planes for you 3 years ago. Yeah, but they were destroyed by Putin outside of Kyiv. We need another set of these. That's where we are. Taxpayers are paying for it. The American public doesn't even know it.
Download the Judging Freedom podcast on any of your mobile devices and read his weekly column at judgenap.com. Judge, just an amazing discussion as always. Thank you for your time.
Until next Wednesday. Thank you, Austin.
Until next Wednesday. Wow. What did you think of that? Great interview. Good stuff. Love to hear from you on that. Send us a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. And we'll be back with David Harsanyi to talk about the left's double standard on anti-Semitism when we return on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Austin's wife. I want to thank you all for watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us.
I believe in liberty, and I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you?
I want to ask you today to join Peterson's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Peterson's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and make your pledge today.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
Hello, I'm George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself or me mom, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me Pops build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, it's 8:28. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson at wakeupAmericaShow.com. All right, well, if you thought the judge was a great guest, I can't wait to introduce my next guest to you. His name's David Harsanyi. He's a writer at The Federalist, and he's joining us for his very first time on the show this morning. Good morning, David. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today. Grateful for your time.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. We've been having this discussion this morning about Kanye West, statements that he's made about, Jewish conspiracies to keep him down. We sort of beat that to death. But what we haven't talked about here is the sort of the left's double standard when it comes to Kanye's remarks. Your latest column there, or the column that I read here, I guess is from October, where you talk about the left's double standard here when it comes to anti-Semitism. Would you like to state your case?
Sure. Well, I think I actually wrote something yesterday as well, kind of clarifying my argument about this. And it's not just a double standard. It's that the left likes to take one side of the anti-Semitism problem, which I don't think is ideologically driven. I think far left and far right are typically embracing it, and then they make the case that it's simply being, propelled by one side of the ideological divide. I think they overstate the case of anti-Semitism. I'm not saying Kanye is not an anti-Semite or Fuentes is not anti-Semitic. I'm just saying that they overstate the problem as far as a political problem, right? There's always been anti-Semitism out there. So, they ignore Ilhan Omar, or they ignore the decades-long relationship between many people in Congress and Farrakhan, or they ignore, Al Sharpton, who, when I was growing up was anti-Semite number one where I lived, who has a show, who has a show on and gets paychecks from NBC. So I don't want to overstate the problem, but I think that for them it's just a political cudgel. It's not anything that they're really trying to deal with or wrestle with in any substantive way.
Now, in terms of like how the left views that, philosophically, I mean, the double standard is sort of baked in, if you will. So my understanding of it, David, is that the left is aware of their double standards, right? It's not as if they're doing this and they're unaware of what's going on. They know for a fact what they're doing. It's just that they maintain this double standard because they see the left, they see their opponents as uniquely evil, and that anyone who is on their side needs to be protected. Is that pretty much your estimate of it as well?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they believe, or they've convinced themselves that democracy, which just means stuff they want, is under, there's an existential threat to it. So they'll make the case that one party rule will save democracy. It doesn't even make sense, right? But this is their case, and it's any means necessary to protect that power. I'll give you a great example. 2 days ago, or yesterday maybe, the New York Times ran a big column about how anti-Semitism was being normalized by Michelle Goldberg, who lives in New York. And she did not mention the 800 attacks in her city, a very left-leaning city, by minorities predominantly, on Hasidic Jews and religious Jews in Brooklyn and elsewhere. I mean, to ignore that and not even mention it in a column about anti-Semitism just shows you that it's just this partisan talking point that they like to pull out to bash the opposition over their heads. And it's not to excuse, Donald Trump or his meeting with Kanye or anything like that. It's just it's just a fact.
Do you believe Donald Trump when he said he had no idea who Fuentes was?
Well, there are three possibilities. One, he didn't know, and that like this Nazi guy can get a meeting with the former president and presidential campaign. That's not good. He did know that. That's not good. And meeting with Kanye himself just shows how unserious Donald Trump is most of the time. And, I'm not one of these reflexive, like, never Trumpers or anything like that. I think he did some good things, but I'm just not sure why anyone wants or needs to go through that circus again with his just simply bad decision making. When, if you're a conservative, do you think Ron DeSantis would ever have met with Fuentes? It seems unlikely to me.
If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson, I'm speaking to David Harsanyi. He's a writer at The Federalist, and we're talking about Donald Trump's meeting with Kanye West and Nick Fuentes from last week, as well as the left's double standard on anti-Semitism. Now, David, I saw that you had written a book recently that was titled Eurotrash. And the subheading of it is Why America Must Reject the Failed Ideas of a Dying Continent. And I'll say that while I haven't had a chance to read your book yet, one of my main gripes that I've had recently with this national movement within the Republican Party, they call themselves national conservatives, is that it reminds me very much of more of a European Toryism than it does of an American conservatism, where American conservatism to me is much more associated with libertarianism, with the Wild West, with cowboys and with gold and with God and guns. Whereas this new national conservative movement strikes me as much more about God and country and about king and country, rather than the sort of American conservatism that was more associated with like the Tea Party, for example. You've written recently as well about the national conservative movement, that they perhaps have a higher opinion of themselves and what they might be able to actually accomplish in terms of electoral success.
Yeah, I mean, I think that movement is a dead end. Though I will say that it's factional, so there are different kinds of people within that movement that have different ideas, and frankly, sometimes it's hard for me to understand. I'm not sure they have a coherent, cohesive, agenda yet. But in general, seems to me that they think they've tripped over this new idea, but they're just a new kind of Buchananism. We tried this in the early 90s in a much more socially conservative time, with many more people in unions and all of that. And even then it was unsuccessful. I'm not sure why they think it's going to be successful politically. Ideologically, I have huge problems with it, because I don't think the idea that you're going to compete with progressives and Democrats in government programs and welfare programs and technocratic job creation and stuff like that, you're never going to beat them at that game. You shouldn't even try, because it's a bad idea. But even if, even in trying to get votes, it's not going to work. The sort of protectionist mindset, I think what they're doing is chasing working class voters. There's nothing wrong with working class voters or trying to get working class voters, and there's nothing wrong with being working class. But it's a shrinking demographic, while you have these suburbs which are growing in places like Arizona and Nevada, and you're leaving those people behind because your message does not appeal to them. So, I mean, I'm a fusionist, basically, and I think that is the most idealistic, most American way, political ideology, and the most successful political ideology that perhaps ever existed in America, or at least in modern times, post-Civil War. And to throw that away and mock it for something, to go back to the late 1800s and be a mercantilist type, it just doesn't make sense to me. And Republicans have lost 3 elections now with these types of candidates chasing these types of issues. So it's been a pretty big failure. So that's basically my case on national conservatism.
It almost seems as if the national conservatives see a greater enemy in libertarians than they do in social democrats. Quite frequently, I will see writings by these national conservatives where they embrace Marxists and they put Marxists at the head of their magazines, while they denounce the libertarian right and claiming that we are responsible for progressive victories here in the United States. How would you respond to that, David?
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that, and I think there's oftentimes these people are just statists who believe in God, and when it comes to economics, when it comes to other ideas, they basically believe in the things that progressives believe in. I would say that they often blame capitalism for the reason, for churches shrinking, for people being immoral, for things like that. I don't think there's any evidence for that. I don't think poor people are more moral, or people who live under authoritarian regimes are more moral. I also actually think that the welfare state was one of the leading reasons why families have been broken up in this country. I think the state crowds out community and charity, and by crowding out the local church or the local charity, they destroy those communities. I'm not saying that progress and the internet and the things that we haven't done some of that as well, but the state has never, in history, I always ask these people to give me an example of where this works, and they'll talk about Hungary, right, where the average per household makes $10,000 less than the average household in Mississippi, our poorest state. Just because you're a tourist in Europe and you see a nice city doesn't mean that the people elsewhere are living these wonderfully moral and wealthy lives. They are not. So I guess that's what I would say to them. I have more to say, but that would be the crux of it.
But David, it is inherently American that there is something that that has caught hold to the public. It used to be exclusively a domain of the left, but now it's very much a domain of the right as well, to hate rich people and to see them being wealthy and being a billionaire is something inherently immoral. What do you think has caused this change? Because it used to be when we would have these fights over capitalism, we were fighting the left, but now we're fighting Marco Rubio when it comes to capitalism. They see it as destructive to the family. They see free markets as inherently immoral. How do we respond to these kinds of attacks on capitalism from the right?
Well, it's difficult. It's difficult because populism is basically an emotional argument, and no one, and people, when people think of the economy as a zero-sum proposition, which most people probably do, they see someone who has a lot and they wonder why they don't have more, and they look at those people with some amount of envy. That hasn't really been an American trait. We have not been a class conscious society. So I don't like that that's being injected into our discussions on the right, because I think in America, most people believe in meritocracy, or did, and they believe they can move from class to class. Immigrants here become richer. We have far more movement and far than Europeans, for instance. And the more the state intrudes, the less dynamic the economy is, things like that, the less movement you'll see. I always like with Marco Rubio, who frankly just chases whatever's, whatever. I remember him as a Tea Party type. He just chases whatever's trendy on the right. He's not going to be he will talk about manufacturing jobs and romanticize like lunch pail, 70s and stuff like that. But he's not going to send his kids to a factory to work there, right? It's always for the proles and the others who they want to live that way. I think Americans want their kids to do better than they did. I sure do. And so I find the emotional appeal of that argument lacking. But, we have to admit that it does have some resonance with people who struggle over, in Rust Belt cities where creative, I hate to like throw around these libertarian terms, but we're like, creative destruction.
No, don't worry. It's a safe place for these big terms. Go ahead.
A safe space, yeah.
Yeah.
So, that is how the economy works, and you can't, you'll never be able to change the rules of progress in the economy. So,
right. But they despise that, right? So this is why so many on the right see libertarians as the enemy, because they claim that it is the job of government to protect American jobs and to ensure that iPhones aren't being manufactured in sweatshops in China, because they claim that those manufacturing jobs need to be returned to the American people where they claim that they rightfully belong. And I mean, how can you certainly can't run for office, David, on a platform of saying I'm a globalist and I believe in allowing sweatshops in China to manufacture your iPhones at the expense of the American worker. I mean, it's a hell of a sell, David.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think sweatshops aren't a bad, right?
Yes, same here, and that's why they hate us.
But I have to say, China presents a unique situation in that they do have slave labor, right? So I think that China is just to say that trade with China should be, and I'm basically don't even believe in any kind of like trade barriers with countries, but I think when you have a slave state, it does present a unique actual slave state, not sweatshops, or low salaried workers, but actual slaves. That obviously presents a moral problem. But yeah, in general, I agree with you. No one's going to, but this has always been the case, so let's save manufacturing jobs, but let's save, I don't, they romanticize the manufacturing. They think if we're not making things here, we're losing, when in fact, this is how we grow the economy. This is how we grow wealth. This is how people live better lives. But it is interesting, and it's a big topic, and I don't have any answers. This thing where life keeps getting better for most people, but most people are unhappier, right? And so there's a lot of that going on, and our politics reflect that. I am very pessimistic about the future because I think the right is moving towards a more statist, authoritarian mindset, especially younger people. I see it in. I was at CPAC a few years ago, and some guy from First Things magazine, which is this socially conservative Catholic magazine, basically, I think it's Catholic. And he said, one of the big problems in society is we have too many choices and too much freedom. And the whole place started clapping. This is the same place I like 5 years ago, it would have been the opposite with Tea Party type. So it is concerning.
Yeah, I did. I drove them bonkers on Twitter one day when I said that national conservatism is just Bernie Sanders, but it goes to church on Sunday. And some people, and a lot of them were like, you know what? You're right. Absolutely. And I mean, that's why you saw Tucker Carlson embracing Elizabeth Warren's economic plan. That's why you see, people like Ron DeSantis going and speaking at those conferences. And I think it's because, they see this as in vogue. I mean, sort of like what Marco Rubio did. But I mean, like you said in your column, if freedom works and if Tea Party conservatism was on the rise, Ron DeSantis would probably be going and speaking at those conferences. So I guess my final question there for you, David, is thoughts on Ron DeSantis?
I know he showed up at those NatCon conference, but I feel like that's just him. And don't get me wrong, I think there are there are some aspects of both his personality and the way he deals with corporations and things like that have great appeal to that faction among conservatives. But also, people move to Florida because they have really low taxes and a really low regulatory environment, and the things that they like. They're not going there because he's yelling at Disney. And by the way, I think that as people with who are more libertarian, I consider myself like a classical liberal because I do have problems with modern libertarians in some ways, which we can get into another time. But
yes,
but the thing is, But the thing is, he basically embraces kind of a Reagan-esque, policy of fusionism, basically. I mean, he's that's what I want to say. So like when he goes after corporations for crony capitalism, where this is another debate I have with these NatCon types, is like, you want more government, but really these corporations have power because of the state, not because there isn't enough state. You know what I'm saying? They have, like the vaccine thing, without the state imposing itself on citizens, that whole debate wouldn't have happened. You would have done whatever you wanted to most of the time. So anyway, I think Ron DeSantis has a lot of features or policy positions that can bring together probably more conservatives than any other candidate I can think of right now. Maybe Young Kids, that kind of candidate too.
David, conversations like these, and for many of our listeners, is like great sex. We appreciate it very much. We want to definitely have you back on the program, though, because next time we're going to have you to bitch about the modern libertarian movement and just how utterly useless and demoralized I am over it. David, this was a great conversation, and thank you for your time. Thank you for all you contribute. Your columns at The Federalist has certainly given a lot of us hope, so thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. That's David Harsanyi. You can read his columns at thefederalist.com. Did you enjoy that interview? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. All right, we want to hear from Edie.
Oh, man, I haven't got nothing to say.
It's been a little...
It's very enlightening today without my big mouth flaps.
No, we're going to hear your big mouth flap when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Didi's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake, yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes, you like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bush. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bush blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
The real-world experience.
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning. It's 8:51. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson at wakeupAmericaShow.com. All right, Edie.
Yes.
Would you like to offer your dissertation on your thoughts?
Well, you had two wonderful guest speakers or presenters today, way above my brain power, but I can say that very enlightening.
Yeah. Well, it's
kind of opposites,
Mhm.
Your last guest,
David.
David. He has a different perspective on what you're talking about, the national
conservatives.
And then when we go back to the judge, who is old school
Catholic,
and always bases his talks on the created person by birth. And that's kind of where I guess, because we're probably about the same age. So
now you and I, we've talked, we're both members of our local Republican Party here in Cole County. And, you have kind of
I'm not very active with it though.
Right. But, you have been in the past.
Yes.
And I think, if when people see Edie Vogel, they think there's a good conservative Republican right there.
Yeah. Just,
right.
But
you've had a lot of, I guess, you've been disaffected.
Absolutely. I mean, it's on a national level. I can't speak too much on a state level because, but I'm very disappointed in our Republican Party in the United States as the division that they have caused amongst themselves, because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
They're not doing what we Republicans voted and elected them to do.
Yeah,
not representing our values.
That's right. That's right.
a good point.
And they've put themselves above their constituents in regards to making policy, and are just thinking that they're like Mitch McConnell. I do not like him at all. And I think he's sabotaged the party this last midterm election by, not reaching out to candidates who had good platforms and good intentions from their area, and wouldn't give them maybe the money they could have helped them to win those local seats and into Congress.
Well, what do you?
But I also want to say that I think, we did make strides. We took over the House. Okay, so that means a lot.
There are silver linings in the clouds.
Yes, yes.
For sure.
Yes.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson, you can send us a text at 573-319-1586. One of our listeners from the 417, Robbie, says he's hopeful for the future. He's got 4 grandkids ranging in age from 13 to 30, and they all love liberty and machine guns.
Yeah.
So Robbie's hopeful for the future.
Well, you have to be thinking that. When everybody runs a campaign and they always say, we've got to think of our children. We've got to think of it. Well, for the last 25 to 30 years, they surely have not thought about the future with the children.
But like people like myself, so I'm just had my 1-year anniversary.
You're just starting out,
starting out, and when I look towards the future for my family, I have no other choice but to be optimistic.
Yes,
and also to stay in the fight for freedom. To fight for their freedom.
That's to me is what I've said. I think earlier. Why the folks, the younger people, they've got to start. They have to participate and get and also just get involved.
Well, and also I think that earlier the judge and I were talking about the lack of belief in freedom. It is because people don't believe that capitalism or free markets will provide them with the kinds of opportunities or outcomes that they want. But we're quoting Thomas Sowell out this morning. But just because capitalism or free markets don't provide the outcome that we want is no reason to believe that the government will be able to do it any better.
Indeed not. The government is causing all this disruptive
destruction of our economy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so the thing is too is people are like, well, where's an example of where this is working? So a few years ago, it was very common or even 2 years ago, or even 6 months ago, it was very common for even conservatives or Republicans, I'd call them, to argue that social media needs to be regulated by the government. That was common. Now, we know that the Democrats are a pointless waste of time. We know that they believe that Mark Zuckerberg and all those rich people need to be regulated because they're rich and they must be evil, so they need regulations. But it was common for Republicans to do it because we were having our free speech clamped down on online. And libertarian Republicans like myself were saying, no, don't do this. This is a mistake. I promise you'll regret it. Allow the free market to work. And look what has happened.
Yeah, it's starting to reverse.
It is
because you're going to see. And I think I've said this before. I think Mr. Musk,
Mr. Musk,
there's something about him that is like a breath of fresh air, in my opinion, to the world of communication. With him acquiring Twitter, and saying this is what we're going to do. We're going to open it back up again where nobody is going to be censored. And
imagine this, if the attitude too big to fail towards the banks and the insurance companies had been applied to social media, and that what if we had been bailing out Mark Zuckerberg?
Yeah.
Right. And look at what's happening to Facebook. They're getting killed. They're getting destroyed.
Well, I mean, he's Zuckerberg. I thought I read somewhere where he's thinking about retiring.
That would be exciting.
Yeah. And then you've got all the other platforms with Trump's Truth Social and everything that Rumble puts out. There's alternate means of finding out what is really, I think, going on.
Freedom works.
Freedom works.
If you let it.
Yeah.
But you have to let it work.
Yes.
Right. And it's not going to maybe be immediately what you want. But it took time for us to crawl out of the gutters. It took time for capitalism to build up society.
Yeah.
It took time for free markets to develop, refrigerators instead of ice boxes, right? You have to believe in freedom, and you have to practice it. Hey, Edie, you rock. You gonna join me on my afternoon show?
Sure, yeah. We'll get down into some
more
stuff I can understand.
Yeah, we're gonna simplify it a little bit.
Yeah.
So Edie is gonna be on my afternoon radio show, which you haven't heard or seen it yet. It's the Austin Peterson Show. It's at 2 p.m. on the Real Talk Radio Network. And Edie is gonna be joining me on that program today, as well as Dave Griffith, who is a state representative from Missouri, who's gonna be joining us to talk about that Defensive Marriage Act. We're gonna talk about The homosexuals are trying to get married. Oh, we'll talk about that on all that and more. But don't forget, like, subscribe, hit that bell notification icon if you're here joining us on the YouTube channel right now live. I appreciate that very much. Like, subscribe, hit the notification button. Lots of people joining us, lots of new friends. Dustin, Al Johnson, Robbie Thurman, all of our new friends over there on the YouTube channel. It's great to see you. Edie, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Yeah, you as well. And we'll see you tomorrow morning on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
I would remind you
in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.